So I'll start again. Thanks everyone. I am Benedetto Biondi. I am the CEO of Volks Finance and I work for Blockchain Italia, which is a software house here in Milan. Today we are here with Massimo Morini, Chief Economist at Algorand Foundation. Welcome Massimo, and thanks for being here.
Thanks to you for the invitation.
I want to thank the Algorand Foundation for sponsoring this event. I'm very proud and happy to organize this first CryptoMondays in Milan. You should be aware that CryptoMondays is the biggest decentralized event in the world. It has born simply from a group of friends that were sharing the passion for Web3, and they wanted to meet, to chat, and have a reference. This was in New York. And now it's all over the world, and it's a great format, in my opinion, because it is simply, you meet someone that has the same passion as you, is in this world that is new, is exploding, and I am very happy to bring this in Italy for the first time, and in Milan. I know they are going to be also in Rome, and we hope that this is a series of events that I could see you tonight and also for the next one. Massimo, do you want to give a few words of welcoming our guest?
Yes, thank you very much. CryptoMondays is something I adored, at an international level. I'm happy that you had this idea to start it in Milan as well. And I'm also happy, that we can talk also here in Milan about the topics we like, about the topics of blockchain, of Web3, of DeFi, and obviously, being invited by you, I guess that DeFi will be one of the topics we are going to cover for sure.
We really like DeFi, so if you have a lot of questions, bring it there. No, really, we would like that this is more a chit chat, as Americans like to call it, so feel free to interrupt, feel free to ask questions. We want your voice with us. We want to make this not formal, we want to enjoy it together with you. DeFi, this is something that in the last year and a half has taken a lot of hype in the Web3 ecosystem. Who knows what is DeFi? I want to ask you, please raise your hands. Okay, many people here, so I'll tell you what is my view of DeFi, being a builder in DeFi, a founder. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. Decentralized finance is the innovation of what it was simply the fintech. It's still fintech because it's finance and technology, but brought to another level because everything in general that we are decentralizing is taking away the central power, the centralization, and it opened for better service, interoperability, composability between protocol, the lack of someone that one day can just come there and block everything. Here is everything decentralized, everything works through smart contracts, so everything it is automated. And now here I'm gonna give the question to Massimo. The risks of DeFi. What do you think about DeFi, and what is your opinion about the risk that we encounter every day when we use it and when we build on it?
Well, my perspective about DeFi is influenced by the fact that I've been in traditional finance for the first half of my life, and so unavoidably for me DeFi is a dream. Even in the bad moments, even if I have to talk about the risk, it's certainly a dream. Because I do remember when I started looking at blockchain, and for me, in a sense, I liked, what we saw in blockchain at that time, the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, the thing we liked, the evolution, smart contract, and proof of stake. But for me, in the end, blockchain had to be decentralized finance, sooner or later, And the reason why I was trying to explain to other people in traditional finance that was very, very interesting is that I was describing to them some very big problems that we were having at that time, because that was the time, that many people remember as the big crisis, the big financial crisis. I started in finance almost enough to see the dot-com. Then there was a period of extreme enthusiasm, maybe even too much under some points of view, particularly for some products. But then a number of problems led to what we know as the financial crisis. And many of these problems were related to issues like the risk of default, the risk that your counterparty has an agreement with you, and you are thinking that you are going to protect your money or make more money because of this agreement, and then this guy at some point disappears, doesn't do his part, defaults. And it was pretty clear, and that was agreed by counterparties, regulators, that the big solution was going to be collateral, collateral guarantees. We can call it in several ways. It's in a sense the same thing that we see when we ask for a mortgage, and they tell us, okay, you can ask a loan just up to a certain percentage of the value of your house. And however, when we started to use collateral as a way to protect, the trading from the risk of default, we realized that it was very hard to make it work efficiently, because collateral was hard to compute in complicated financial products, because collateral was actually slow to transfer, up to 3 days, in some international deals, and that financial markets move faster, than 3 days. The market can change dramatically, and then even more importantly, the moment in which collateral was needed, there was always a problem, either legal, regulatory, technical, and collateral was never really doing its proper job. And I started to say, and I even started to write, and then, I happened to talk about this on CoinDesk, I happened to see my papers mentioned even when a regulator in America was reporting in the Senate. I started to write that, for me, there was one fantastic application of blockchain that was moving collateral fast, automatically, in a way that was objectively the same for both parties using smart contracts. And I remember that a few people were surprised, because what are you talking about? Blockchain is, supply chain or many other things. For me, it was collateral. And when I look at DeFi, and when I look at the way it works, for me, it's the realization of an incredible improvement compared to what I had seen, And then obviously there are risks in DeFi, but let's first consider that without the blockchain, without the smart contracts, an idea like DeFi would not even be thinkable. How can you make, Forbes Finance does borrowing lending. How can you make borrowing lending with someone that you don't know? Who is on the other side? It's impossible. If I have to lend you my money, I need to know who you are. I need to make sure that if you try to disappear, I know you by name. I can maybe, sue you if you are not paying. DeFi works without this. Thanks to the efficiency of a blockchain, particularly, if you are in a blockchain like Algorand, you can really talk about collateral that moves instantaneously. In other blockchains, maybe it's a little bit of an euphemism, but in Algorand it's absolutely true. And you have finality. So in a sense, yes, just because of the fact that there is a smart contract that you have agreed upon with a counterparty, there are precise rules. You can do this business even with a person that you don't know. Then obviously, what are the risks? Part of them are the same risk of any financial activity, So there is obviously financial risk. And let me say, which is a thing that in a sense for young people should be a reason, a motivation at least to find out more about this world. But DeFi is complicated. It's complicated. Takes some time to understand how it works, even for people that come from finance. So there is financial risk, there is the risk of losing your money, there is the risk of volatility. There is technological risk, there is always the risk of a bug. We know how the blockchain works, particularly at the beginning in an ecosystem, such things can happen. And then there are risks that are not exactly uniform in every blockchain ecosystem. There are some risks that are depending on the protocol where you see a DeFi deployed. Because it makes a difference, you know, if in the moment in which you should increase your collateral to avoid actually that being taken away from your counterparty because your collateral standard have lower because of a market movement. If suddenly your blockchain is down, if there is a delay, if there is a fork, you know, that is the difference, you know, between losing money and not losing money. So definitely on a platform with finality like Algorand, in a platform that has never been down 1 single second since the time it was founded, well, obviously some risks are definitely reduced. And there are some risks that also depend on the specific project or platform where you are. You know, I'm thinking of the issue of rug pulls, you know, not serious projects. But you know, again, as they say in all the blockchain field, do your own research, don't trust, verify, and so learn how to distinguish what is good and what is bad. You know, and then in any case, even for what is good, risk is always there for sure.
I totally agree with you. What I would like to add there. Collateral, but think also as well how much is more efficient trading on DEXs compared to stock exchange, traditional. And in the morning they have to wake up, the exchange open, and you have to see what's going on in the world. In the decentralized finance, everything's open 24 hours, so this works constantly. And one of the things that I'm also thinking, this was on our experience of our team. I was discussing a few days ago with our CTO, why do we have much higher loan to value compared to what it was Aave, that it was our example when we built the protocol. And I just said our liquidator liquidates fast. Like when Aave V2 was on only with Ethereum, the liquidation was a trouble. I remember there were nights where Aave and Compound were competing to each other to see who was able to liquidate all their loan, and sometimes both of them, they were losing money. That's not easy to do, and it's not nice to have. And with Algorand we were able to do it, and we are safer, we are faster, and everything works well, great. So for this sense, I believe that in Algorand we are doing a great job as founders together with the foundation and Inc. We are building a new financial system that can be open to the world, because one of the mission of Algorand, Massimo, correct me if I'm wrong, is to bring borderless economy, future-fi, to those that cannot have access. Having low fees can make the usage of permissionless protocol to anyone. Simply you need a connection to internet, and then you can enter this fantastic and also dangerous world, why not? That still is fantastic. And have access to financial services that otherwise wouldn't be possible. So I really like the way Algorand goes towards institution and not against it. Maybe Massimo, you could talk a little more about this, about the Algorand mission, and how do you want to support DeFi and how it's going.
No, thank you. There is a sentence from our founder Silvio Micali that I keep, you know, at the top of my LinkedIn account, that is about democratizing finance and allowing essentially that everyone can access financial services that are usually limited to just a few people. What does it mean? You know, what we are essentially saying is leveling the playing field. You know, an idea of finance where there are not strong powers and weak powers. That's what democratizing finance really says. And this goes through also, in a sense, yes, a prudent approach, like the one you were saying, you know, because talking about the amount even of collateral, you know, to protect a deal, it's impossible not to think of what happened to Luna, to the Terra Luna system just a few weeks ago. You know. Well, I don't know what is the opinion, what is your opinion. I tell you what, you can check on the web. I wrote my first paper talking about stability of cryptocurrencies and the possibility of using two assets. At that time I said two kinds of wallets because there were no smart contracts yet in 2014. That was in 2014. The idea was trying to make a cryptocurrency being stable using two assets, in a sense. One that is stable and the other one that is used to make the other one stable. So for me, that is always a great idea. I followed MakerDAO when it developed. I followed the first algorithmic stable coins in Algorand, and I was looking at Luna as well. It was quite visible towards the end, particularly, that collateral was no more the over-collateral. You couldn't compute a concept of loan to value. So how much I'm going to lend you considering that it's protected by this value. Because the two things were exactly the same level. So in the first moment in which there was a problem, there was no extra to protect your value, which can immediately start a cycle of liquidations. And then there was another thing that was particularly visible. At some point, the Terra Luna system started to advertise dramatically that very high rate, that they were guaranteeing to everyone, that entering into the stable coin. Paradoxically, this was obviously motivating a continuous increase of the stable coin with a reduction of the collateral. And
we saw the foundation, the Terra Foundation buying a lot of Bitcoin too.
Yeah,
that was an alarm, in my opinion.
No, let me say, at some point, we were criticized in some moments, but it's not such a big critique, for anyone approaching Algorand, for actually having our governance rewards too high. But the truth is that that was a fixed amount. At the beginning of governance, there were fewer people in governance. This motivated more people coming, and now, after almost 1 year, the rate is much lower than it was in the beginning. In a sense, Terra went against this fantastic financial logic, that in a sense, when there is excessive demand, equilibrates things a little bit. When there is too little demand, it goes back to be an incentive to get there. So, and that created really a risk of, bringing too much more people to Terra than the collateral could actually sustain. In spite of this, let me say that, in my opinion, algorithmic stable coins are gonna end up like DAOs. When I started being interested in smart contracts and also the Ethereum ecosystem and so on in 2014, when before it was actually started, then there was a lot of interest in the DAO project, almost first serious smart contract that ended up holding a lot of money. And in a sense, probably that was an event in history. For the first time, there was a piece of software really controlling a few hundred, 150 something $million. And then, as you probably know, there was, some people say a hack, some people say a bug. The truth is that it was the beginning, to say the truth, Ethereum smart contracts are at times a little bit too easy to write. I am a programmer in Solidity, but that is a positive thing about Solidity, but also negative things about Solidity. It's a little bit too easy. For example, the Algorand system to write smart contracts is more complicated, but also safer. Then you have ways, if you want to actually write smart contract in Python, to have translations from other languages, but in the end, the standard is a bit higher. But in any case, the truth is that there was a misunderstanding in the way the smart contract had been written. The programmer had misunderstood himself, in a sense. There was another guy that was more clever, and he was able to use this feature in order to take away a lot of money from the DAO project. Seemed to be an incredible standard, smart contract are reliable and so on. And at the beginning I said, come on, already at the beginning, that was a world, in which you still may fear, that this fantastic promise of blockchain could stop and so on. And then you learn what really happens. What happened is that because of this scandal, many people looked into the topic of smart contracts. They started to look at that and said, come on, this really worked. There was a mistake, but everything went exactly as in the mistake, because the smart contract really worked. In a sense, the same happened, to Terra Luna. By the way, probably this time they made a mistake that was financial, things went bad, but now so many more people know about the idea of creating a currency which is stable, actually through an automatic mathematical mechanism. And you know what is happening now? That if you open a journal like, I don't know, Forbes, so it doesn't really seem, if I look at some of you now, probably you are not reading Forbes, on your mobile, because you're not so interested in what I'm saying. Maybe some is. Forbes is full of articles about DAOs as the future of the business. It was a topic in Davos, in the World Economic Forum, talking about DAOs is the future, organizations should be DAOs. 6 or 7 years ago, DAOs was a word that you couldn't use. The most unfamous word, notorious word you could use in the field of blockchain. In this case, I do expect that in a few years, improved under many points of view, this idea will definitely go back to be even more popular than it was before.
Thank you very much, Massimo. This is very great insight. And maybe I would like to ask to the audience if there is some question so far on the topic that we touched. Is it any? Raise your hands, please. Okay, then please.
Just to connect with the DAO topic, how do you see that, if you see that in the political system?
The possibility of a political DAO. I mean, it's an interesting question. In a sense, in saying that it's good for management, one correctly wonder if it is good for the management of common goods. Well, in general, I would say yes. In general, I would say yes, because at times, okay, let me go back to the topic we were touching before. Or in everything, you need to find an equilibrium when you are managing something between rules that everyone knows that will be followed and flexibility, capability, to intervene when there is a problem. The balance probably in today's world is always a little bit too much towards flexibility, changing everything. You cannot trust on anything, So in a sense, I think that the blockchain, the DAOs, without having a view that you can never change a rule and being, that's what made me bored of Bitcoin at some point, even if I like the idea so much at the beginning. But yet, more rules, a few things that that are protected by a complete change of mind, of someone that is supposed to govern, yes, can be useful. That's what I think.
Yeah, I also believe that when everyone will have a wallet, probably also from the government itself, through blockchain in general, which, okay, obviously we want to use permissionless, possibly, it could generate a lot of simple solution that could help transparency and automation, make services better. Let's think of having a vote, like the DAO and blockchain works perfectly. So, in my opinion, that could definitely be something that brings benefits, but it's difficult to bring to governments. And since we touched this topic, I will say, let's talk about the Algorand Foundation governance, because we have this biggest on-chain vault ever, and Algorand is pushing it, now opening it to DeFi. So Massimo could talk a little bit about it.
No, I mean, I have been amazed, since when we started governance, from how successful it was in the most meaningful sense, that people really debated that. The first vote was a fight to the last vote, on two things that seem to be, maybe not so attractive. Where the possibility to choose between two levels of rewards for governors, and you say, well, everyone should go for, since the governors vote, should go for the highest rewards. No, because to avoid, something like that, there was an equilibrium in the question that if you wanted to have more rewards, you also had to commit more strongly for in a way that made it more difficult, in a sense, to unstake. And the vote ended up to the last vote. And I noticed the second one, instead, it was an incredible support, So you really see what at times you don't manage to see in today's democracy, People really thinking that a vote is crucial, or people really converging on one single position. And now there is a very hot debate, also on the last question. That, by the way, regards the idea that the DeFi users should have a say, and a relevant say, in governance. Well, without getting into the details, without even we cannot really imagine now how the vote will go. Let me say that certainly the foundation has strongly this idea that DeFi is important, that being in DeFi is a way of being committed, because you do an economic activity. We said it's risky, and so in a sense, it's similar, then someone can discuss, one is more relevant, the other one is less relevant, but exactly like those that decide to stake, to hold for a long period of time, even if maybe the market moves. Also those that decide to commit into an economic activity and bring their funds, they are super important. They need to be governors, they need to be incentivized to participate. And then, we let the vote decide the rules, in a sense.
Yeah, let's see what will be, but anyway, we thank you for involving this. At least let's try to bring this up. Is there some question from the audience? Anyone raise your hands? Yes, there is one.
Maybe
maybe we can turn on the lights. Anyway, we are towards the end, so we can. Possiamo accendere le luci? Vai, prego.
Just a question about, I think we all agree, like Elon Musk says, that just right now money is just a database of info to have access to goods and services. So what do you think about, where do you see the next innovation of Algorand? Like first question, and the second one is, what do you think right now we are on security of wallet, the majority of wallets that are on the market? Thank you so much.
Sorry, I didn't understand the first part of the question. So you said that the quote from Elon Musk, it was regarding?
It's regarding the idea of money that is just like a database of info to have access, that you use to have access to goods and services. And on this idea, what do you think that is the next innovation of Algorand and the security, the level of security of the wallet right now on the market?
Okay, it's a complicated question. I was thinking that what I was saying was complicated, but thanks God, also your questions are complicated. And it's a splendid question, In a sense, at times, I know that at the very heart, the job that you do in the sector in which you are in, when you are in a cryptocurrency, in the blockchain, is not very different from the one I had when I was in a bank. Because to say honestly the truth, 500 years ago, banks were a big innovation. Banks were a great moment of decentralization. Because to say the truth, before that, there was no trading, no real international economic life. The kings dominated everything, with their gold. And then there was this idea, by the way, it was an Italian person, Fra Luca Pacioli, with a lot of contribution, from Indians, from the Islamic world, and so on. He actually developed a new way of writing down, databases, their own kind, that kind of databases, registers, records, ledgers, actually. And together with the other big innovation that he also fostered in Europe, that was the new way of writing numbers, because, the Romans were fantastic in many things, majority of things, but with numbers, they got it wrong tremendously. making computation with Roman numbers was crazy. So in that case, the Indian Arab numbers allowed to make everything much more easily. And really, it was this technological innovation that allowed banks to become a big ledger that could have, a version in Florence, a version in Milan, but also a version in Paris, Amsterdam, London. And if you needed to move money from Milan to London, and remember, that exactly in those years, people from Milan went to the city of London and created what was for a long time the main street there, Lombard Street, still called like that. Actually, the moving money now from Milan to London was no more an issue of sending big carts of gold, armies, devastating all the countries along the way. It was just sending a message and keeping all the ledger up to date and in sync. So, in a sense, this aspect is crucial to capitalism. This aspect has been crucial to every kind of innovation and progress. I'm not surprised that Elon Musk made this comment, even I was not aware of that. Well, one of the big innovations, we are already seeing it now. For me, the next big innovation is, in fact, some people say that double entry accounting was the big invention that allowed to create efficient ledgers like those of banks in the Renaissance. And some people call triple entry accounting the idea that in your ledger, when there is someone that gives something to another member of the economy, needs to sign it on the ledger. An idea that was then implemented with blockchain, with a digital signature for everyone that wants to transfer something. So we are inside one super big innovation. The other big innovation has been smart contracts. And now we are definitely seeing how this can be brought to the next level. So, think of the innovation in the consensus protocol, that is the way, in a sense, to sync the ledger from Bitcoin to something like pure proof of stake in Algorand. Or think the innovations that we're seeing in smart contracts, starting from the even super valuable origins, of the smart contracts in Ethereum. So yes, I think we are already talking about these big innovations that are happening now, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Other questions? Do we have other questions? Anything curious?
Yeah.
Okay, come.
Sorry for my ignorance, but I wanted to ask, do you think that we are in a crypto bubble right now? Because there are so many cryptos, so many blockchains, and do you think that we are like in the 2000, like the dot-com bubble?
Well, that's a good question. Part of the answer maybe is not only an issue of crypto, but in the whole Western economy. Have we ever gone out of the bubble of the 90s? In the sense that what we have seen at that time as the idea that people could invest even in small startups without knowing their future, and losing a lot of money on some of them, making a lot of money on few of them, in a sense it has become a reality in all parts of our economy, not only in cryptos. And when I have to talk about the dot-com bubble, that I said was my first experience, was still at university. I started, basically to increase a little bit the little money I was getting by my parents. I started to do a job in finance related, to a person working with Sole 24 Ore. That was my first experience with something related to trading. And, what I have to say about that time that I can remember personally, in a sense, there was the expectation that the internet was going to be an incredible thing, that would have changed the world, would have changed the economy, and so many people, young people, favored also by an easier setup, particularly to make IPOs compared to what is now, made a lot of projects. It's true that many of them, I don't know, let's say more than 50%, maybe even 90%, disappeared in a relatively short time. But you know that at that time you could have invested in Amazon. At that time you could have got into Google. So in a sense, if you average out, being there and investing in that bubble could actually be an extremely good investment. So if you average out, maybe the average return was in any case very high. And in any case, guys, can we say that the internet was a fake promise? I wouldn't say so. But let me tell you another thing that I remember. There is an article by Victor Krugman that then got the Nobel Prize later on for economics around 2000, in which he says it's about time to admit that the internet had the same influence on the world as the fax machine, probably even less. It has changed nothing. People are already very tired of this useless thing. The year 2000. Guys, I'm old enough. I do understand how that could happen. In the 90s, at some point, 96, 97, we started using emails. But that was at university. Probably people not at university started later. And I do remember that when we had to start my first thesis that was on artificial intelligence, something that was developed by a professor in Moscow, support vector machine, and we needed to read his books. Guys, there was the internet, but we asked to send us the copies. You know why? Because downloading the big file was almost impossible at that time. I do remember that when we wanted to visit a website, we said, okay, let's go to the website, let's have a cigarette. And we were back and we started to see something that was great. And I do remember that we were using Alta Vista to find information. So in a sense, at that time, it was not yet clear that the internet was going to fulfill its promises completely. Now, blockchain is more mature than the internet at that time, and already, in a sense, bigger in many areas. There is going to be again a process in which only the best projects will emerge. Yes, but I'm not anymore in thinking that the word bubble is the right word for this kind of economic processes nowadays.
Thank you, Massimo. Last question? Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to ask your opinion about liquid staking, since this governance is about including DeFi users into the governance. And in my opinion, liquid staking is a good way to incentivize both governance vote and DeFi ecosystem.
Well, that's also a very technical question. I do like the idea of liquid governance. Let me explain a little bit what it is. And as I usually do, I do prefer that those that have hands-on experience talk. Benedetto has created a few million values of liquid governance, so it's probably better if he also talks about that. Liquid governance is the idea that once you need to commit your algos, your funds, it exists in other blockchains, maybe for staking. For us, it's for governance. And you need to commit them using, again, these algos as a form of collateral that you can redeem. You can actually obtain another form of asset, another ASA, another asset that obviously has got a value because it gives you the right to redeem those algos. And so you can be in governance and you can also have an asset that you can spend. Well, in my opinion, is definitely a good and an interesting idea. I'm still curious to see enough activity to understand what it can create, what it can generate. I'm sure that there will be things that we will like a lot, and maybe some things that we will not like, you know. But I think it's a great idea, and frankly speaking, I'm testing itself with my own resources.
We have to check this if you were in time.
No, I mean, in any case, I got the G-algos. So maybe the only problem is that I will never get the interest on governance, you know, but the G-algos are there.
It's a great question. No? The idea of is to make it more efficient. You are still using DeFi, so you are always incurring some risks, so it's on the user side. But definitely it's something that can bring up more values. In our mission, when we created the G-algo, there was the idea of creating a secondary economy for the algo that could be used. Okay, we see it right now in the main DEXs as one of the biggest pools, so you can trade it. When the G-algo lose value compared to the algo, you are going to buy more because you know that you can redeem one-to-one. So it's fantastic what generates. We were super happy with it, and we are going to bring it at a higher level still, improving it more. So I believe it's a very powerful tool for Algorand for bring TVL. And TVL, that means grow up in the DeFi Llama. It means more users looking at Algorand. When they will come, they will buy algo, so it's more value for the algo. So we are trying to make it. So I believe we are out of time. I want to thank Massimo first for being here and for enjoying with us this evening. And thanks to all of you. Really, it's fantastic for me to see all of this interest and all of these new faces. I'm happy to come there and talk with you, to meet you, and to continue this great night. We will have the bar open. Feel free to ask anything you want, and some food. If you haven't, take the QR code at the entrance. You will be able to redeem an NFTs on Algorand, of course. And by holding the NFTs of each event, you will be able to ask later the prizes, which will be merchandise or other things that we are thinking about.